Good morning, everybody. This is Jeanette, and I'm going to be your instructor this morning for Sage 300 CRE Project Management Setup. This is actually the first session in a series of three with regards to project management. We're going to focus today on the setup of the application, and future sessions will focus on the documents that are available and then the change management features within the software. So again, today we're going to be focusing on setting up project management. There are two handouts that are attached to the web panel. Underneath handouts, there is a copy of the PowerPoint, and there's also a Word document for PJ Setup that we're going to be following along. So if you can get the Word document printed out, that it actually goes through the discussion that we're going to have and then the software that we're going to jump into. Okay, so our agenda for this morning, we're going to talk about the features of project management. We're going to review the terminology associated with the application. We're going to discuss the path to getting started with PJ. So if you have the module but you haven't actually gone in and set it up yet, we're going to talk about what that path is and then where it's going to lead you once that piece is done. The setup itself, we're going to be looking at settings. We're going to look at how to set up the address book. Within the address book, setting up companies and persons, and then we'll jump into setting up jobs inside project management. Okay. I'm sorry, I've got a distraction going on here. Can you stop the recording for a second? Tina?
Yep, no problem.
All right. Apologize, everybody. I'm going to go out and stop the yard people because it's bad. Hold on just a minute. I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. I apologize, everybody. They picked today to come and do the bushes in front of my office. Okay, so go ahead and we'll start right here with the features. Again, I apologize, everybody. That noise was just too much for me to be able to talk. Okay, so the features that are within the project management application. So once this is all set up, you're going to be able to go in and use the documents within PJ, the documents like submittals and transmittals and RFIs, and all the change order forms that come with the software. You're also going to be able to create and track meeting minutes. This is a really nice feature to hand out professional-looking agendas for your meetings. We also are able to either print these documents or email them from inside Sage. So we're going to talk about the setup of that so that you're able to, quickly distribute the forms for each of these documents. You can track drawings in project management. So if your project has a set of drawings, you can enter those into the system, and then you can track any changes or revisions to those drawings. And then additionally, you can include those drawings with some of the forms that you send out or email. Correspondence-wise, when we get into the document session, which is our next class, we have a correspondence log that comes with the software, and I'm going to show you how to set your emails up so that you can actually attach your email to the correspondence log for that project. So there'll be a link there so that you're able to bring up these emails at any point. You can also track documents with this correspondence log. So Excel files, Word documents, PDF files, anything that relates to the project itself, you'll be able to attach that with the log. We can also create custom logs. Now, we have something called field reports that kind of takes the place of those custom logs, but I will show you where those are set up. And if none of the field reports has the information that you need to track, again, you can do that with a custom log. And then as far as working within the software after the setup, you're going to be able to manage your contracts. So these would be the contracts that you set up in the CN module, subcontracts, purchase orders, again with the commitment setup, any change requests that come through for that project, and then you can turn those directly into a change order, and then release them over to accounting, which means send them over to the job cost module so that you can run reports on it from there. You're also going to have access to certain parts of the project, like the contract status, estimates, change orders, cost. This is all done through the reporting. So in either application, either in job cost or project management, you'll be able to see all of this information pertaining to the project. The setup of the jobs, we can set up jobs here in project management and release them to accounting, which means you can have a project set up in the system that you haven't actually been awarded yet, but you want to track maybe some documents with regards to those types of projects. And then once they accept your bid and you have the project, then you can send them over to job cost and it will set that job up in JC. I'm going to point out in this session and in the future sessions that the job exists in both modules. So the job ID itself is really the link between the two modules. Each module holds different information between them. Over in project management, you're going to see documents. You can run reports there that show you any changes that have come through, but you're not going to see any totals on that job. All of that is stored over in the JC module. So over in job cost, that's where you're going to see the summary totals for all the costs, the estimate, contract amounts. You'll see all the cost codes and the categories there. You won't see that in the PJ module. So the job, again, is in both applications, but each application stores a different set of information. And then securing the job information, we can set security up on those job records again. So only the people that need to see that information can see it. All right, terminology. Basically, this comes down to the documents that you're going to be creating in project management. The transmittal is just simply a cover sheet. That was its original intention, but I've seen a lot of users use the transmittal as part of their email feature, simply because it gives them a nice document. It gives the owner of the project a nice document, or other individuals within the company. It automatically stores that in project management. You don't have to go out to the email and connect it through the correspondence log. It's right there. So you can use it either way. You can use it as a cover sheet, or you can use it to send emails to individuals. The submittal is another document that you might want to use if you're sending out items for approval. So depending on what your project is, you may be sending out paint colors, you might be sending out rug samples, you might be sending out, aluminum type, steel type, whatever it is that you're going to be using on the project that needs to be approved. And what the submittal does is it lets you track the sending of that sample out to the person that's going to approve it, and then their response once they take a look at it, whether they reject it or approve it. And then you're going to track that within project management. So if there's ever any question about it, you have a log that you can come back to and you can pull the document up. Now, the request for information, another nice form that you are going to use if you need to ask questions about the project. So you'll be able to use this to type in your question, who the question needs to go to, and email it out from within project management. And then once the response comes back, you can go back in and fill in the answer. So again, you have an electronic copy of those questions and answers. And then again, meeting minutes. A lot of customers use this even for their own, internal meetings within the company. So it's a nice form, and we'll be demonstrating all 4 of these forms in our next session under project management documents. So the path to getting started, we're going to be taking a look at PJ settings. So this is the step that actually creates the PJ master file and document file. I'm going to show you custom descriptions where you can go in and customize some field titles or drop-down boxes. We're going to go in and look at how to set up companies in the Sage address book and the contacts or the persons in address book. This is a direct link to the AB module. And we want to do this especially for your own company, because you're going to be wanting to email to other individuals, and they need to know where these emails are coming from. And so that, again, I'll show you how we're going to set that up when we get in the software. We're also going to take a look at setting up the jobs in PJ and how to release those to accounting. And then I'll show you, once it's released, that it's automatically created over in job cost. So, and it's actually a two-way street. So if you set the job up in PJ and release to accounting, it goes to job cost. If you set it up in job cost first, it automatically goes to PJ. And there's no prompt to say whether you want to release it to PJ or not. If you do it in job cost first, the job is automatically set up in project management. Then after the setup is done, from there on, you'll be able to manage all the documents, whether it's a submittal, an RFI, a transmittal, meeting minutes. You'll also be able to, once you have your jobs created, you'll also be able to link emails or documents to those jobs with the correspondence log. We'll also take a look at the drawing log. This will be part of our documents class, and then creating custom logs. So the setup piece that we're going to do today is really what gives you access to all of these other pieces as far as the documents are concerned. And then once, again, the setup is going to control whether or not you can come into project management and enter estimates or the commitments or the change requests and then the change orders. So the setup piece is the first thing that needs to be done. And then if you're not, using documents right away, you can jump right over to the contract management side of it. This will give you access to the job cost inner estimate piece. It'll also give you access to the CN contract setup. So a project manager, if they're going to be responsible for all parts of this project, you can give them access to those pieces through project management. Okay. All right, so we're going to jump into the software now and take a look at all these different areas for setup. So everything that we've just talked about is on the first page of the Word document. We're going to start now with page 2. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the software. Okay, so I'm in project management and I'm in the Timberline sample company. And I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Company Settings, PJ Settings. Now, if you have not set up PJ yet, you will get a prompt to create the PJ master file and the document file. So just click yes to those prompts when they come up. All right, on this first tab, we have a general tab with some check marks. Use last job. I would go ahead and check this box so that as you go through the documents or go through the setup, it will automatically pre-fill the job number field with the last job that you accessed in project management. Otherwise, the screen will come up with a blank job number, and you'll have to either type it in or use the find button to get it. So if you're doing a lot of work in one job, it's nice to have that job pre-filled. Allow limited entry of contract amounts in worksheets in project management. So if you're doing any quick bill type jobs that have to have the contract amount entered through a miscellaneous worksheet, you will check this. Otherwise, leave it unchecked, and they'll be able to do miscellaneous worksheets inside project management. Include attachments with documents when sending. So this will create the attachments and allow you to add more attachments to that document when you're doing a send or an email from inside project management. Include document attachments on transmittals, same thing. So I would, for this screen right here, I think what most people have checkmarked is the ones that you see on the screen and in your Word document. The Document Forms tab just has the Crystal forms that come with Sage already locked in. If you need to change to a different form or a custom form, just use the Browse button here on the end to change that form. Otherwise, when you click the Print button, this is where it's going to grab its document form from. Okay. Under Change Management, these are the forms that will automatically print. And again, if you have a custom form, you need to go ahead and lock that in here. Now, all of these forms on the Change Management tab and the Document Forms tab, these are Crystal reports that you would have access to with the Crystal Report Writer. So if you need to make any changes, if you want to add company logos, or you want to move things around or remove certain things off the form, you can access these forms, again, through Crystal. And then as long as they have the same name, if you don't change the name of the form, they will start printing that way. If you do make a copy of this form and then make changes to it, make sure you come in here to PJ Settings and tell it to use the new form that you've created. Okay. If you're doing commitments and you're going to do a commitment change order, this checkbox here to automatically assign the commitment item column, you might want to check that box. Otherwise, if you're changing a specific item, you'll need to make sure that that line item is on the grid. Now, down below, we have the categories, default categories for each of the 6 cost types. And this is for lump sum pricing. So again, for it to pre-fill, you can use the drop-down. This is going to give you your list of standard categories. Now these can be overridden at the time that you're entering in the change order or the change request. So these are just going to be the defaults that it's going to pick. Excuse me, that it's going to pick up. All right, field reports. Sage has activated quite a few different types of field reports that you can go in and fill information in. Excuse me. One of these, the payroll time, does have an interface to payroll. So you can actually have a project manager enter time in project management using this field report, and then it can send that information over to the payroll module. By default, I think these are all check marked. If some of these, if you are not going to use them, just simply uncheck them, and then when you go into field reports, it will not display display those on the screen. Okay. All right, so once you have all the defaults here filled in, just click OK, and that saves it's created the files and it's saved your answers. Now, additionally, we have under company settings, we have custom descriptions. And if you scroll down to the PJ fields, you'll see a whole list of project management fields where you can change descriptions. So like some of these miscellaneous fields that just say miscellaneous amount or miscellaneous contact, you can actually re-identify those fields just by changing the name here. And that will change the name wherever this field shows up in project management. The other thing that you can control here is anything that has a drop-down. So anything over here that shows up that has a drop-down list, simply click into the field, and then you can use the customize list to either add or delete from the defaults that come with Sage. All right, so custom descriptions to change those description names, and then to modify any of the drop-down lists that you see within the project management application. All right, the next page, on page 6 in your handout, we are talking about send settings. I'm going to come back to this in a minute because this screen is dependent on address book. So before we take a look at the send settings, we're actually going to go over to setup, and we're going to take a look at setup company and person. So you want to make sure that your company is set up as a, we'll just call it Sage CRE, it's fine. And we can, again, give it a company name. You can actually put in a location and a region and a type. These are for reporting purposes. The same with your address fields. We store 4 address fields as far as, again, reporting. And accounts payable and accounts receivable, they will automatically set your companies up and vendors up here. I believe they pull in the address off of those records and put them in as, I'm not sure if they're street or remittance. We'll have to take a look at one of those here. But I'm going to go ahead and put a street address in here. Fill this in so that it's all in for that. Okay. And then down, I'm sorry, we have phone numbers. You've got a primary phone and fax. And actually, if you click the drop-down arrow here, you'll see that we've got multiple phone numbers. You can, fill in each of these. And then you have the fax number as well. It's got the same 5. So you want to make sure that this is primary phone, primary fax. If you change the option, it changes the description. Okay. The trade, these are defaults from custom descriptions. So if you have more that you want to add to this, or you want to just change the description on one or more of them, or take some of them out, again, go back to custom descriptions to do that. If you have a company email address, you can lock that in here. A web address, lock it in here. The send via, when you're sending information out, you probably need to change this over to email. If the company, if you're, not your company, but any other company like a vendor or a customer becomes inactive, you can check this box here for that. And then down below, we have contacts. We have a primary contact for your company, and then an estimating contact, an AP contact, and a billing contact. Again, these are so you can isolate the person without having to look down the list to find them. To set someone up as a contact, you either up here under these 4 types or down in the grid, you click on the little person icon, and that brings up, after you save, that brings up the person setup window. So we can access person setup from either inside the company or under the setup drop-down. There's a separate one for, excuse me, for person. Now, by doing it here on the company setup, notice it brings in the company name and address for us automatically. So we don't have to scroll and find the company first to get them in. When you enter it, go ahead and enter the name. When you enter out, it brings you down to the job title and a department, and then the sort as. Now this can be kind of confusing. I wish they would change this. It brings the sorting down the same as the full name. But when you are doing a list, it's a lot easier to find someone by their last name. So I always change this and sort by the last name first. Okay, just a tip there. Again, because it is easier to find somebody that way. You can put in phone numbers here on the side. You can put in the email address. And then make sure that you change the send via, change that to email. So that when you pick this person to send your email out, it automatically defaults to email. Otherwise, you're going to have to change that every time you go to send something to this person. Okay. So let's go ahead and save and close. And notice that it brings me in. I clicked on the person up here as the primary contact. It then picked me up down here in the grid. So I'm added in both places. And it also pulled in my email address and my send via. So it pulled that off the person setup. Now down here for reporting purposes, you have some enterprise types. Some of these are like women in business is the WBE, MBE is minority. I'm not sure about the others, the three in the middle. Let's see if we can do a help on this. It might give us the, and again, oh yeah, it does up here at the top. So for reporting purposes, the minority, small business, veterans, disadvantaged, and then women owned. Okay. So for reporting purposes, you may want to check that if you have that information. Here's one of the miscellaneous fields that you can rename in custom descriptions. So it just depends on what you need to use this field for, again, for reporting. Same with the subgroup field. So these are just two miscellaneous fields. You can rename them in custom description and then use these fields in a report or an inquiry. Okay. Right now, once we have the company and the person set up, let's go back to send settings. And this is where you want to make sure that you have yourself or whoever needs to be identified as the sender. So if you're sending stuff for someone else within your company, you want to lock that person or yourself in here. And so I can come down to the ease here. There I am. And I can OK that, lock myself in. So when I go to do a send, it will automatically pull me in as the sender. If you're going to print instead of email, you can do a cover page. It wants a design name, so you would browse to whatever you're using as that cover for printing. Otherwise, if all you're doing is emailing, just make sure again you have a default sender locked in. All right, once we have the companies and the persons set up that may be used or notified or communicated with on the project, the next step then is to come in under Setup and go to Job. So this is starting on page 8. All right, so to set up the job, we can click New, but I think we can just go ahead and put the job number in, and it knows that. So notice it accepted the job number, and this is the format. This is the same job number format that you have in JC. And then you'll go ahead and give it a job description. And then we have tabs here, just like we used to have. If you're on 17 or 18, the job setup screen looks a little bit different now, but we have tabs here in this setup window. All right, so the first field is your status field. And it's the same set of statuses that you have over in JC. And this will actually change once you start posting costs over in job cost. It'll actually change the status here to started. Now here's the checkbox to create the JC job. So if you're not yet ready to create this job over in job cost, leave this unchecked, and then you'll come back to it once you've accepted they've accepted your bid. The job type, we'll just give this it's a medium, let's say. Type, we'll just call it training. This is going to come over to the job over in JC. The job size, this is numeric, so we'll say it's $1 million. Okay. Unit description. Okay, that'll also come across. Any dates, our estimated start date, we'll say is today. The completion date, we're going to complete this probably next month sometime. We'll say that. If we make any revisions to this, and then when we actually post a cost to this job, it'll actually update this field from job cost. So this first general tab is just, again, static information, some date fields about the project. Over under site, we can put in an address of where this project is located. And again, this is also going to go across over to JC. We can put in a phone number. A fax, a miscellaneous phone, those will also update. Now, the contacts. If you're going to be doing documents through project management, and you're always going to be sending these things to certain people within address book, the same people all the time, you need to go ahead and lock them in as contacts on the job. And the reason for that is that we can pull these people, instead of having to scroll through your entire address book every time we go to do a document, we can get this short list to come up, and we can pick from there. Whoops. Yeah. So let me grab somebody else here, and we'll put Steve in there as well. Okay. Now, the other thing we can do on this screen is we can do a distribution list. And again, this saves us time. So we may have different types of documents that we do. Maybe we do RFIs, RFI for job 18-001. And we're going to go ahead and add members to this. I think I have to save it first. And then, okay, I'm going to find the person list here. So you see what it's done here is it has gone out and picked me off of this list right here by default. It's going to the job contacts list. This is the type of options that we will have, plus the distribution list when we start doing documents. So again, we can streamline this so that we only get the people that we're dealing with, not the entire address book. So I do want myself in here, so I'm going to come back and grab me, and I'm going to grab him and him and him and him, okay, and her. So it just depends on who you need for this particular distribution list. So anytime I do a document, instead of going to the address book or the job contacts list, I can pull in this distribution list, and it will bring in everybody on that list into the document, so that when I do my send, it sends to all of these people at the same time. So it's a shortcut to make your document creations go a little bit quicker and smoother. Now, this distribution list is not job specific. So if I were to go to another job here, let me go ahead and save this for now and close. And let me go in and bring up an existing job. And go to the site contacts and go to the distribution list and go to find. It is specific to the job. Sorry about that. Okay. So this particular job has two distribution lists, one for the architects and one for the subcontractors. Okay. So these lists are built. They're not universal. Unless, let's see. Nope, I can't get to those other lists. So it's just job specific. Okay. So you might want to think about that to kind of decide what types of groups of people you may need to contact on the project, and then think about setting up distribution lists for those groupings. All right, let's go back and bring up our job. Okay. All right, so that's the contact area, and this can be extremely helpful, again, when you're doing your documents or you're doing change management. All right, spec sections. If you want to lock in, the areas from the standard spec section list, these are actually built into the software by Sage. There is a setup for this that you can go in and add or remove spec sections. And then once you have that the way you want it, you can pull in either one by one, or you can even, I just held down my shift key, and that brings those into the job. And then as you're doing the documents or the change orders, you can specify specific sections. The sections have to be on the job. All right, under scope documents, if you need to type in more information about the project, you can put it here. You can cut and paste it in if it exists outside of Sage, maybe in a Word document, and you want that to be available for reporting. The submittals, if you want to lock in how many copies of the submittal to send out, you can lock that in, so that when you do the document, so how many to send, and if you're forwarding the submittal to anybody, how many copies. And then if you want to lock in the person who to send this to by default, again, you can use the binoculars. It brings up the job contact list. Notice we now, let's see, how do I get to my distribution list? It's just that for now. Okay, so I'm going to send this to Steve. And then how many days on the RFIs do they have to respond? This, again, it's going to lock these numbers in and this person in when I create these forms. So these are default pre-fills is what we're looking at here. The same with change management. If you're doing change requests, who needs to approve that request so it can be turned into a change order? So you want to lock that person in. And then down below, if you want to lock in any default markups, add-ons, or taxes, on this grid, you can mark it or lock it in as a percent or an amount, flat amount, or create a subtotal line. So if it's percent, we can say maybe this is a markup, and we're going to mark the price up 10%. And then if this is some type of a cost, it's going to be broken down by the different cost types. You can check which ones are being marked up. So if we're marking up labor, or we're marking up maybe the material and maybe the subs, and then what cost code should this go to, or leave it blank if you're going to be filling that in. Same with the category, leave it blank if you're going to be filling that in. Or if this markup goes to a specific cost code, and I don't think I have one locked in here, so we might just stick it there, and then under category, and we might lock it into there. And then the cost percent, if we're going to do a change, like a change order for the estimate, how much are we going to mark up the cost? Again, these are defaults that are going to show up. These are going to show up at the bottom of the change order. So anything that we enter in the grid up above, either for the contract price or the estimated cost, it will pull these in as defaults. And then who are we going to send the, who are we going to send that change order to approve? And who is going to send it to them by default? So the change order request would come to me in this example. I would turn that change request into a change order. I would then send it back out to Steve from me. Now, there's a checkbox here at the bottom. This is marked because I have project management activated. It's not going to let me do any change orders over in the contracts module. So if you've just recently turned on project management and you have contracts already set up in the CN module, there is a checkbox over in contracts that you need to mark. Otherwise, when you try to do a change order over in the contracts module, it's going to tell you that you can't because the job has been set up in PJ. I know that's kind of confusing. If you set up project management and contracts at the same time, this checkbox is not even there. This is only for users who have started out with job costs and contracts and then added project management later. Okay. All right, the last tab we have are custom fields. So if you have any custom fields set up on the project, the PJ master file, they'll be displayed here like we have on page 10. And then I've got some buttons there at the bottom as well. Okay. All right, and actually let's talk about the buttons on the side right here. So if you are creating a new job, you need to click New, and that will take you back to the General tab, and you set up the new job. The renumber job, let's talk about that. Let's say you have a series of job numbers that are for your projects that are in the bid stage, but you want to use project management to track those jobs, the documents. Once they've accepted your bid and you actually have the project, you can change the job number to fit into your current list of job numbers. The only thing is you need to remember is that regardless of the number you have in here, it has to match the job cost format. Okay. And then if you click the renumber job, then you get this screen here. And then once you renumber, then you can come down here on the General tab and click Create the JC job. Now it's pre-filled some of the information here. Our billing method defaults to Quick Bill. We're going to make this a contract job. We'll change the billing. Well, that's actually going to go away. Never mind. We will go ahead and lock in our GL prefix for General Ledger. And then we can put a project manager name in here, any of the miscellaneous fields here. Okay. And I'll go ahead and OK that. And notice here my check mark now is grayed out because it's created the job. All right, the rest of the buttons here, the Find, if you're looking for a project that you want to go to, it brings up the job list. You can use the next or previous forwards or backwards here. You've noticed that every time I try to move around, it's asking me to save the job. You can actually start clicking the Save button. You'd like to maybe get into that habit. You can add attachments to this record. So this brings up the window where you can type in notes, or you can link files to this record. And then once you're all done, you click the Close button. Now, if we switch over to job cost, and let's go into Set Up Jobs here. Okay. And if I do a list, there's my job. And notice it's pulled in some of the static information. It's pulled over the dates that we locked in. The billing information, we don't have fields in Project Manager for the customer or the tax group, so we would need to fill that in. So there are some things that we'll have to modify once we get over here. Same here. So if we need to fill in any payroll information, that's not stored over in Project Management. It did bring over the prefix that I locked in, but if you've got approval IDs or banks that you need to fill in, or any tax groups, you'll have to fill those in. We don't have any contract amounts yet. And then notice, again, here's where all of our totals are. Okay, so over in Project Management, we only have static information, contact information on that job record. There are no dollar amounts or units, so we have to come over to job cost to see that information, or run some reports. Now, the reports in both PJ and JC, they do cross, and so you can get project management reports that have this information on it. Okay. So again, we've got all of these same reports that we see over in job cost. We see those over here in project management. There's actually more different types of reports in PJ than there is in JC. So your project managers will probably find some very useful reports here on these on some of these submenus. Now, I had mentioned the standard specs section. There under setup, there is this area here, and again, Sage provides the standard list. So you can go through this if you need to and take out the ones you don't use, add new ones in, and again, when you set the job up, you can lock those in on the job. They're pulled from this list right here. The other thing we have down here under setup are the custom logs. I think we'll talk about those when we do the documents in our next session. This is a pretty simple setup, and Sage actually sends 5 different types of custom logs out with the software. However, I think the field reports pretty much replaces these, and so you may or may not find a use for them. I think what you're going to use more are these field reports here on the documents, in the documents area. Okay. All right. I think that takes us through all the setup for project management. So if you have any questions here before we finish for this morning, if you want to type in any questions that you might have in the chat area on the GoToWebinar panel, and Tina, are there any questions in there yet, or we'll maybe give them a couple of minutes to type in?
Yeah, give them a minute. There's nothing in there yet, but I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Yeah, I think the main thing to remember here is with the job setup, that their project management and job cost is linked by that job ID, but each application is holding different information about the project, and that regardless of where you set it up, you're going to have to go into the other application to finish it, because some of the fields are the same and they will update. Other fields do not exist in both places, so you have to go into each application to finish that setup. The other thing to note too is if you are going to set a job up that you haven't won yet, if you are going to record any pre-bid costs to that job, you're going to have to set it up as a real job. You can't record any costs to a job that doesn't exist in JC. And in order to exist in JC, you either have to send it to job cost from PJ or you have to set it up directly in JC. So you won't be able to renumber that job once the costs start coming through.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here, so I think you're pretty good on that.
Okay, so I think we can go ahead and say good morning, and I'm hoping that I see you all in our next session, which is going to be on September 11th. We're going to review the documents area in project management, so we'll be covering all the different docs that we mentioned here, including the correspondence log, excuse me, and the drawing log. So we'll be doing documents on the 11th, and then we'll be doing change orders or change requests on the 25th of September. So 2 more sessions in this series that should cover all of project management. All right, so everybody have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next session.